This video will contain spoilers for the Fallout show on Amazon Prime. I've watched the first season of the Fallout show on Amazon Prime a couple of times now, all the way through, and I can't get enough of it. It's one of my favorite video game adaptations, if not my favorite video game adaptation, which should be no surprise since Fallout is pretty much my top favorite video game series of all time since I was a young kid, about 11, 12 years old, in 1998. I think that the show did a tremendous job of showcasing the wasteland, showcasing the types of stories that exist in the Fallout universe, and introducing us to new stories and new characters that are not only engaging, but fit really well into the lexicon that is Fallout lore. A lot of people have been making rumblings about potential retcons and things of that nature. That's something I'm going to address right up front. It's something I'm going to just jump right into at the beginning of the video, because I think that a lot of people are misunderstanding maybe what the show was trying to say, but also misunderstanding what a retcon is. So let's just jump into that real quick, because a lot of you, maybe before you saw the show or after watching the show, you may have seen any amount of people, but more than a couple, online saying, oh, New Vegas is ruined, they've retconned New Vegas, they've ruined the NCR is gone, the NCR is destroyed, oh my god, it's so terrible, the events of New Vegas don't even matter, oh, they ruined New Vegas, they're not going to care about New Vegas. But a couple of things to think about with this. I'm one of the biggest Fallout New Vegas fans of all time. I have a 3-hour video dedicated to just finding small details, and I'm making another one right now. In that game, I've spent thousands of hours in Fallout New Vegas, playing it, enjoying it, loving it. I consider it to be the best of the series, even though I'm most nostalgic about the classic Fallout games. Fallout New Vegas, I think, perfects the formula. The reason I'm going over this is because I want to stress that I'm coming from the point of view of a fan of Fallout New Vegas. I'm coming from the point of view of someone who is obsessed over Fallout lore since I was 12 years old. Now, do I know every single scrap of Fallout lore off the top of my head? No, of course not. A lot of times when I make videos, I remember something like, oh, this particular lore event happened, and then I'll go and I'll make sure that my facts are straight by either checking the multiple wikis that we have available for this series, or just checking my information online to make sure that I'm not just out in left field with a lot of things that I, like, especially when I'm doing the useless facts videos. They're useless, but they're also facts, so I try to make sure that I got my facts straight. Regardless, I have obsessed over this stuff since I was a kid. I went into the show cautiously optimistic, with an open mind, but I know that I have a following with YouTube and Twitter and things of that nature. So I knew that, well, if I don't like this show, I can, tear it apart online, yada, yada, yada. And, you think about those things. But even with that mentality going in, even for the audience to understand, I was left out of Bethesda and Amazon events for this thing. When my other content creator friends were down in South by Southwest, like living it up with the cast and, going through sets and meeting Todd Howard and like all this other kind of stuff, I was left out of those things. Regardless of the reason, whether it's because of my poor online behavior, my tension behind the scenes with Bethesda, whatever it may be, the fact of the matter is I was left out of those things. So I still, even with that, what some would perceive as perhaps like a jaded attitude coming into the show, I absolutely loved it. Now let's talk about these retcons before we get any further. So the real retcons that happened in the show, two of the biggest ones that I can think of, one is not really a retcon, it's more of a confirmation, and the other one is indeed a retcon. Ghouls. It seems, and again I could be wrong, but the show presents us with information when it comes to Cooper, the main ghoul, and other ghouls that we meet inside the show, that they are prevented from turning feral by using what me and my live stream chat have dubbed anti-feral juice. In the show, they just call it a vial. It's something that when Cooper shows up to the Super Duper Mart, he's trying to sell Lucy. He would in exchange get a bunch of these vials. That's what their currency was being used as. And these ghouls use them to apparently not turn feral. This is not something that's been in the games before. I don't know if like all ghouls need this. I don't know what, like, because we just see a little bit of it. We see Cooper just downing a fucking bunch of them in Super Duper Mart, and we assume, that's gonna last him for a little bit. It also seems to be a type of Kim in the Fallout universe where Cooper seemed to be coming intoxicated as he was drinking them as well. So there's that bit of retcon, which I see no one talking about. And the reason I feel like I see no one talking about this, correct me if I'm wrong, but the people complaining about these retcons the loudest are the ones that haven't watched the show. Had they watched the show, there's actual retcons that they can get upset about, and perhaps this would have been one of them. The other thing that I kind of consider a retcon, but like I said, it's not really a retcon, it's more of like a confirmation of something that we all speculated about before. They heavily implied that Vault-Tec kicked off the Great War in order to fill their vaults and be able to appease their corporate overlords for the most part. The reason I consider this a bit of a retcon is because, to my knowledge, the Vault experiments and the Vault programs and stuff like that were contracted through the Enclave, or at least the United States government at the time. And maybe the show will slowly reveal this, and Vault-Tec just these members and these people around the table at Vault-Tec don't know the truth, and they just think they do. But it was the Enclave was building a starship that was going to sustain life and humans for generations, hundreds and hundreds of years up in space while they found a new planet to colonize. That was the Enclave's big plan to get out of Dodge before things all went to shit because of the Great War. Or at least, they'd be able to continue their research after the Great War with the help of Vault-Tec and these Vault experiments. Each Vault designed to do a different experiment. You have cryo chambers for life sustainability when it comes to being in space all that time. You have social and political themed vaults that showcase the dissent that can happen when different programs are issued or different things happen with different people. Like they tested so many different things, and if you go through the vaults, you can kind of see and apply a lot of the experiments that you hear about to this starship thing. Now, I don't know if Bethesda still counts the starship as canon, so maybe that's not the case anymore. But the show is canon, and the show implies heavily Vault-Tec's like, well, what if we start the war, and then we can get people into these fucking vaults. This is something that's brought on actually to coincide with the people saying that New Vegas is being ruined and forgotten about. And oh my god, New Vegas. Mr. House is at this meeting, pre-war human form Mr. House, and it really adds to his character. Frederick Sinclair is there as well, representing Big Mountain. And one of the things Mr. House says is so fantastic and so much insight. Like and this is kind of thing that rubbed me the wrong way with all these people just dogpiling on the show with perhaps not even watching it, and they're worried about precious New Vegas. Somebody who cares about New Vegas wrote Mr. House's lines 100%, because one of the things Mr. House says is, Freddy, you're the only one that could lose money on building a casino. Something to that effect. Referring to the Sierra Madre, referring to this big love letter that he made for Vera Keys. And it's just such a tongue-in-cheek thing that Mr. House totally would say to that fucking character, because Mr. House, of course, he knows how to run a casino just fine. He runs several, if you look at it from one perspective. We also see New Vegas at the ending scene of the very last episode of Season 1, meaning that in Season 2 we're heading there. So obviously New Vegas still exists. Obviously this isn't a problem. Let's get into what people, I think, are misunderstanding and mistaking for a retcon, and hopefully I can explain it in like the way that I interpreted it, which made total sense, and I wasn't upset about it at all, and I was like, oh, okay, this is fine. So there's a chalkboard that Lucy finds in a vault, Vault 4, It's the vault where everybody, she comes across Shady Sands, and it's a big fucking crater in the ground. This is where it starts. This is where a lot of the anger is coming from people. So she gets to Shady Sands. She sees this big fucking crater in the ground, and Max, the Brotherhood of Steel recruit that she's with, he comments that, you know, he was there when it happened. And whenever we see flashbacks that Max has of Shady Sands, we see Brotherhood Knights coming in, and they take Max because he's a young boy, and they just add him to their ranks. They give him purpose, they give him food, they give, you know, like, it actually, an elder goes through with Max everything that he's given him. So they see this big crater in the ground, and they're like, oh shit. And he's like, yeah, you know, Shady Sands was destroyed. So that's the first thing that a lot of these people are getting upset about is, oh no, Shady Sands is destroyed. The way I look at it is stories continue. Just because Shady Sands was good 10 years ago, 15 years ago, doesn't mean it is now. And that's okay. It's okay for locations to get destroyed. When it comes to the NCR, they get wrecked in the show. Apparently. Now, here's another thing that I want people to consider. By the end of the show, it does seem like Medavor, I always mess her name up. There's a woman who leads the Raiders at the beginning of the show, Medavor. I'm pretty sure that is her name. Correct me if I'm wrong. I'm sorry. I just always mess it up because I was saying Medover before. Anyway, Medavor, she leads these raiders into the vault, and for all intents and purposes, we all agree that these are raiders. They have no semblance of decorum. The vault locks them up in a jail after their crimes, and every interaction they have with them afterwards is savagery. Therefore, to me, they don't seem like they're trained NCR soldiers. Now, the reason that's important is because when we see Medavor again, she is at the NCR headquarters, seemingly running a group of NCR troopers. Now, one thing to keep in mind is I didn't see a bunch of NCR gear there. I saw maybe some combat armor, some better gear, but I didn't see anybody with the standard, like, trooper armor. The only time we really see NCR armor are two random guys that are who have made enemies out of Cooper, or at least one of their family members have, and so we see them digging around in ranger outfits. But at the end there, when the Brotherhood is raiding the observatory, and it's the NCR headquarters, I think it was the former NCR headquarters. Again, this doesn't mean that, like, that wasn't a troop of NCR soldiers that got wiped out by the Brotherhood. This doesn't mean that Medavor's not some kind of leader of the NCR. What my theory is that a bunch of the raiders found good gear at this NCR post, and here you go. Now, Medavor was involved with Shady Sands, and seemingly involved with Lucy's mother, which I think is what caused Shady Sands to get nuked. If you're wondering why did Shady Sands get nuked, it's because Hank, the overseer of 33, he was with his family in the vault. His wife Rose was like, there's a better life already outside. The whole goal of this vault program is apparently to repopulate and resettle America, and the NCR is already doing that. And so she went to Shady Sands, seemingly also perhaps hinting at having a relationship with Medavor. This caused Hank to lose his fucking mind, and he somehow finagled a nuke to be dropped on Shady Sands. Now, one thing to also realize is this is something that Chris Avalon, former writer of the Fallout series and writer of the Fallout Bible, someone who is responsible for a lot of the lore that we know as the foundation of the Fallout lore. This was the plan that he had before. By the time we hit Van Buren, we were likely going to see the NCR in shambles. We were going to see a bunch of their locations fucking destroyed because they continuously made enemies without being checked throughout the wasteland. One thing to also note about the Fallout show is we have not entered the Mojave proper. We have seen New Vegas at the end. One shot of New Vegas as Hank is coming up over a mountain, and he's heading there presumably to talk to Mr. House because Hank is pre-war. He was cryogenically frozen to become an overseer of a vault, and he knew Mr. House, or at least was in passing with House during the Vault Tech years before the bombs dropped. So obviously things are working out there. Now the problem comes when people saw this chalkboard thing that Lucy sees in this vault, and it says the fall of Shady Sands 2277. And a lot of people have pointed out, well, the second Battle of Hoover Dam ends in 2282. So, I mean, I think it was 82. I'm pretty sure it was 82. Anyway, I'm doing this off the dome here. I thought it would be more genuine to not sit here and script it and just talk to you guys about how I feel about the show. But anyways, they see 2277, the fall of NCR, and then they see an explosion next to it. And they're like, oh, wow, so Shady Sands was nuked in 2277. We didn't hear about that in New Vegas, and that makes everything in New Vegas fucking useless. No and no. When you look at the timeline, I know this... It's been a while since I've been in elementary school, but if I remember timelines correctly, it says the fall of Shady Sands 2277, and then there is an arrow pointing further down the timeline that then shows the bomb dropping. Bomb not having a date, so I assume people think that that is when the bombs drop. And maybe it is. So let's start with if it is. If it is, there's a few ways that you can handle it. The first way to handle it is, who cares? If they're going to say that a bomb dropped on Shady Sands and destroyed it in 2277, but the events of New Vegas happen in 2282, you could just simply say, who cares? Like, that's one way to handle it. Obviously, that's kind of hard for a Fallout fan to do, so we're going to look at other options. Let's say the bomb dropped in 2277, and it's just like one of the things that I think really stands out and why people are like, ooh, is because we don't hear about this in New Vegas. We don't, like, it's obviously a major event. Why would we have not have heard that Shady Sands got nuked? But we do hear that Shady Sands isn't doing very good. Though a lot of the NCR, hope to go back home. They're like, oh, I'm from Shady Sands or whatever. But like anybody who talks about it, like they don't act like it's any quote better than the Mojave. We also get to nuke the NCR and the Legion respectfully in Lonesome Road. So like using a nuke post-apocalypse, this is nothing that's new or crazy in the Fallout world. If those bombs dropped, the NCR could still operate in the Mojave. They could still... I mean, we're 10 years removed from it at this point. The only reason it's such big news in the show is because they're literally at the site. In the Mojave, it could be a point of like, who cares? What I think is actually the case, though, and we wouldn't have to use those theories, is that the bomb dropped much later than 2277. Perhaps after the Battle of Hoover Dam, the second battle, that is. I think that when we see that arrow on the timeline, it means that going further down in the timeline, that's what happened. I think the fall of Shady Sands is more referring to perhaps something more politically, maybe a sickness that went through, but I don't think it was the bomb, because they would have said, the destruction of Shady Sands. They intentionally wrote the fall of Shady Sands. Now, a lot of people have related that to, it must be when the bomb fell, but I don't think it is. I think that they're alluding to the fact that Shady Sands fell well before it got nuked. But then you could be asking yourself, if that's the case, then how come Lucy and Lucy's mother Rose and Medever were so insistent on living there? But you could also make the argument that they wanted to make it better. Both of those people seem to be the types of people that want to influence the wasteland with their own standards. One of the things that I keep in my personal headcanon is that the events of Van Buren happened before the events of Fallout New Vegas. Now, Van Buren is a canceled Fallout 3 that was in development before Bethesda took over the IP, released their own Fallout 3 that was set on the East Coast. Van Buren, scheduled to be Fallout 3, featured a destroyed NCR. It featured Joshua Graham as the hanging man, a Jinx companion that would follow you around. It featured the Legion. It featured the first Battle of Hoover Dam. It featured the starship that I'm referring to. All of these things I keep in my personal headcanon. Now, obviously, they're not necessarily canon, but I like to think that those events happened before New Vegas. Now, if we are to look at it that way, the fall of the NCR and the nuking of Shady Sands, this would track with already of happening before New Vegas. But again, I understand because we don't get told about that in New Vegas. It's a very major event, so it's like, why didn't we hear about this? Whatever. It's just how the story's played out. Now, I honestly think that the timeline shows the fall of Shady Sands 2277 and then the bomb getting dropped later. I could be wrong. Maybe we'll find out in season 2, but I know for sure something that we'll find out in season 2 is how New Vegas is doing, because we see New Vegas at the end of season 1. That obviously leads me to believe that we're going to be in at least dabbling in that area. Hopefully Good Springs, by the way, because that's my town. But we're obviously going to be dabbling in that area. Now, a lot of people may be worried about them canonizing an ending or anything like that. As far as I know, the team at the show has been told not to canonize endings for Fallout 4, New Vegas, things of that nature. So how would you do New Vegas? Well, you can imply it. Much like how they imply that Vault-Tec started the Great War to fill up their vaults, you could imply that, oh, well, ever since the second Battle of Hoover Dam, things just haven't been the same, just shit like that. Like, you don't have to flat out, say who won, but you could imply different victories. You can imply all 4 of the victories, honestly, and leave it mysterious. That's up for the show to decide. I honestly welcome it. A lot of people are afraid of canonizing endings and stuff like that. I welcome it. I want to see the ending to the story of New Vegas. I want to see what's going on in New Vegas 10, 15, 20 years later, because we're not going to. And that's another thing that I think people need to realize is when it comes to an official release, we're never going to be in that area again when it comes to Fallout. We are never going to be, it's never happened before. It is like Fallout and Fallout 2 kind of had intersecting locations. Like there was some locations in Fallout 2 that were present in Fallout 1. The end. I'm not referring to Creation Club or anything like that when it comes to, like, in Fallout 3. You never go back to those locations again. Now you may say, well, Fallout 76, you go back to the pit. Not what I'm referring to. I'm referring to these mainline, story-driven, single-player games. It has never, ever happened, ever, that we have gone back to the same location and continued the story. Now you may be thinking, oh, well, Fallout 3, with Fallout 4, we get, little tidbits of information and we see people that were involved. Sure, we see people that were involved back in the older games too. We see Harold in 1, 2, and 3. We see Marcus in 2 in New Vegas. There's all kinds of that kind of thing going on, but we never go, we were never going to go back to New Vegas. We were never going to go see how that story ends. We were never going to continue that story, the end. So to know that there could be possibly some ties at the end of that story excites me. Some people seem to be upset about it. Some people seem to be afraid of it, but I welcome it, honestly. So maybe my mentality about it is different. But when it comes to the shows, if you've been seeing the stuff about retcons, I'm telling you, I'm promising you from somebody who is obsessed over this lore for years and someone who loves New Vegas dearly, considers it the best of the Fallout series, this show handles the IP with care, it handles the IP with respect, and it really does feel like very good stories set in the Fallout universe. So let's talk about how I feel about the show overall, since we've spent 20 minutes talking about the potential retcons and how I feel about them and what people are saying about them. If you couldn't tell already, I absolutely love the show. There's not a whole lot more to say about how I feel about it, honestly. The first episode starts off tremendously. We see Vault 33. We see this interesting formation that I haven't seen in the series before, where there's 3 vaults connected to each other to ensure a better survival situation. But of course, Vault-Tec being Vault-Tec, these vaults aren't what they seem. 33 seems to be pretty normal if you're just an average Vault citizen and you don't go asking too many questions. You'll live your life normally. 32 seems to have some issues because everybody ended up dead. They cleaned it up real quick, didn't tell anybody about it, and then just moved a bunch of people from 33 over to 32. But then the real fun part comes with 31, where we find out that a bunch of people from Vault Tech and other corporate entities were frozen, cryogenically frozen, and saved to become overseers of these other vaults. I thought that was very interesting. I thought the way the Raiders, and again, I look at them as Raiders, like we don't even know if this group was NCR or not. We just assume it was because of where they were. And again, I realize that Medeva herself has ties to the NCR and Shady Sands, but it looks like she's just running with Raiders now. And they did seem more organized and better equipped at the end, which leads me to believe that they were perhaps NCR troops, and that a whole gang of NCR troops and a Brotherhood chapter got wiped out in a big fucking war at an observatory. Because a lot of people aren't even talking about the Brotherhood losses. They're just referring to, oh, the NCR got totally wiped out, but the Brotherhood got fucked up too in that fight. The way I look at that kind of stuff is the NCR was destined to get wrecked, and they did. Like, they expand too much, they make too many enemies. The Brotherhood is a very powerful enemy when they want to be, and I think it just came to a head. I think they got double attacked when Hank from Vault Tech dropped a fucking nuke on their city, and then I think the Brotherhood just came in and swept up the scraps. Does that mean that the NCR is over? No, like I've been saying before, the NCR is an idea, much like how the Enclave is an idea and Caesar's Legion is an idea. These ideas will remain in the wasteland forever. People will adopt them forever. There will never not be an NCR. There will never not be a Caesar's Legion. There will never not be an Enclave. And there's another thing too. People are worried, oh, the NCR totally blown up and it's all gone. If you look at the track record of the Enclave, they've been destroyed 2 or 3 times in the Fallout universe, and they keep coming back. And that's because the idea of the Enclave will never go away. The remnants who believe in it strongly will hide. They'll hoard their technology. They'll hoard their items and their supplies, their weapons, their armor, and they'll just wait and they'll chill. We see that in New Vegas. And I think the same could be said for NCR. It's not going anywhere just because it lost a bit. It's lost plenty of battles before, and you cut off its head, 2 more grow back. The show itself does an absolutely tremendous job of showing the pre-war in a retrofuturistic way. It isn't just the 50s and then it got nuked. They use more retrofuturism than some of the Bethesda games do. It's just a fantastic story told through the medium of a video game adaptation to television, and I really think that if you're a fan of the series, you're missing out if you don't go check it out. I plan on making useless fact videos about each episode. So if you're looking for more information about, like, oh, this reference and this reference and this reference and what is this, what's going on here, I'm going to be making video like that for every single episode. They should be coming very soon. But I just wanted to get out my feelings of how great I think this show is. I think it ended tremendously. The retcons that I mentioned, the ghouls and Vault Tech starting the Great War, honestly, they didn't bother me at all. The retcon everybody's referring to about the 2277 thing, I think it's misunderstood, and I think it'll be explained in better detail in Season 2. And if it's not misunderstood and that happened, it's just an event that they added to the timeline. It doesn't affect New Vegas at all. I've had a lot of people saying, like, what's the point of playing New Vegas anymore when it's all for nothing? It's like, that could be said for any of the Fallout games. Like, yeah, how do you think we feel when we play Fallout or Fallout 2? Like, and like, oh, well, like you boot up Fallout 2 and a bunch of shit has changed. Some things have expanded, some things are gone, some factions are there, some aren't. Like, and that now it just doesn't matter anymore. Like, I just think it's a weird way to think about it. You can boot up any of your Fallout games, they're going to play the exact same way. You can choose any faction you want and have a fucking great time. This show's never going to affect that. I don't think that they've done anything egregious when it comes to the lore. I really, really enjoy the show, and I think you will too. But again, I just wanted to talk about a bit of the retcons people were discussing online, and then also my feelings on the show. So I hope you enjoyed listening to me ramble about it. What are your thoughts on the show? What are your worries about the show? What are your predictions? Let me know in the comments. I hope to catch you on the next one. It has been Mantis.